"Shut your mouth before I shut it for you, girl." A white officer screamed the words right into a black woman's face. Nia Caldwell, with years in law enforcement, had been pulled over on a quiet road for no reason at all. 3 other officers stood nearby, yet none of them stepped in. "Get your hands off me," she said. She did not move. Her eyes locked onto his face twisted with fury. Veins bulged on his neck, his jaw tightened, his eyes turned bloodshot. He took 1 step back, then delivered a sharp slap. The crack echoed across the roadside. Nia's head snapped sideways. 1 officer looked away. Another froze in place. Nia touched her cheek, tasted blood, and then looked him straight in the eye. What happened next destroyed an officer's career, exposed an entire sheriff's department, and triggered a federal investigation. Before that satisfying moment, though, let me take you back to where this all started. Let's rewind. Because before Nia Caldwell stood on that roadside with blood on her lip, she was having the most ordinary morning of her life. The alarm buzzed softly on the nightstand. Nia reached over and silenced it before the second ring, an old habit shaped by years of early shifts that had wired her body to wake before the sun. She swung her legs off the bed, bare feet meeting cool hardwood. The house lay still and dark, wrapped in the kind of silence that only exists before the world remembers you exist. She moved through the hallway without turning on the lights. She did not need them. She had walked this path countless times, past the family photos lining the wall, past her daughter's old bedroom now turned into an office, past the bathroom where her husband Roland's reading glasses sat on the sink. The kitchen carried the rich, dark aroma of coffee she had set to brew the night before, exactly the way she liked it, a little too strong. She poured a cup, sat at the counter, and opened her tablet to review department briefings, staffing reports, and budget reviews, the kind of paperwork nobody imagines when they picture a police chief. Yet this was the job: reading, planning, solving problems before they ever became headlines. Nia Caldwell had recently become Ridgemont County's police chief, the first black woman to hold that title in the county's long history. Let that sink in. Her appointment had not been quiet. Half the department respected her record. The other half could not get past the color of her skin. Anonymous complaints reached the city council the same week she was sworn in. Someone left a note on her office door that read, "Diversity Hire." She took it down, threw it in the trash, and returned to work. That was Nia. No drama, no speeches, just quiet determination. Roland walked into the kitchen a short while later, tall with gentle eyes, a high school principal who graded papers the way Nia read crime reports, with a cup of coffee and zero tolerance for nonsense. "Day off," he said, kissing the top of her head. "Actual day off, no emails, no calls, just you and your mom." Nia smiled. "I will try." "You will fail," he replied. "But I love you for pretending." She laughed, the kind of warm, easy, real laugh that fills a kitchen and lingers in the air like sunlight. She grabbed her keys, her jacket, and her wallet. Her badge sat on the counter by the fruit bowl. She looked at it for a moment, then slid it into her jacket pocket out of pure habit. Even on a day off, she never left home without it. No uniform today, no department vehicle, just a dark blue sedan, jeans, a white blouse, and a woman heading to visit her mother across the county line. Here's the thing about Ridgemont County. It looks peaceful from the highway: green fields, old churches, family diners with hand-painted signs. Yet underneath that calm surface lies tension, the kind that stays silent until it suddenly explodes. The county was mostly white and working class, but in recent years more Black and Latino families had moved in, and with them came friction, not from everyone, but from enough people to make the air feel different. The sheriff's department had collected complaints like parking tickets, racial profiling, excessive force, illegal searches. Several formal complaints had been filed over recent years, mostly from Black residents, and every single one had been investigated and dismissed by Sheriff Harlan Beckett's office. Every single one. That is the soil this story grows from. Now let us talk about the man on the other side of this encounter. Sergeant Troy Ellison, with years on the force, was the kind of officer who confused authority with power and power with permission. That afternoon, Ellison cruised a back road near the county line with his partner, Deputy Nolan Pierce. Windows down, country radio playing low, Ellison wore his sunglasses, one wrist draped lazily over the wheel. He nodded toward a row of houses. Another block, another barbecue, another noise complaint by evening, he said. Nolan gave a short, nervous laugh. He never pushed back. Then, Ellison spotted it. A dark blue sedan driven by a black woman through what he considered his part of the county. He watched her pass. She was not speeding. She was not swerving. Her signal worked. Her plates were visible. None of that mattered. Ellison flipped on his lights. Nia saw the flashing red and blue in her rearview mirror before she heard the short whoop of the siren. She glanced at her speedometer. No violation. Nothing. Yet Nia Caldwell did not panic. She had been here before, not as chief, not as an officer, but as a black woman in America. She signaled right, pulled to the shoulder slowly, and parked near a streetlight, deliberate because she knew visibility mattered. She rolled her window down, placed both hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, and waited. This is what they do not teach you in school, that a routine traffic stop can become a death sentence depending on the color of your skin. They do not teach you the mental checklist, hands visible, voice calm, no sudden movements, do not reach for anything, do not argue, do not give them a reason. Nia knew that checklist by heart, not because she had read it, but because she had lived it. Ellison's cruiser sat behind her for a full moment before he stepped out, intentional, letting the driver sit and letting the nerves build. He walked toward her car slowly, boots crunching on gravel, belt jangling with the weight of his holstered pistol, taser, handcuffs, and radio. He did not walk like a man approaching a routine stop. He walked like a man approaching something he already owned. He tapped the roof of her car twice with his knuckle, hard and unnecessary, then leaned into the window, sunglasses still on, gum rolling between his teeth. He did not greet her. He did not introduce himself. He simply shined his flashlight directly in her face. License and registration. Nia handed them over calmly, smoothly, without fumbling. "May I ask why I was pulled over, officer?" Ellison did not look at her. He studied the license like evidence, flipped it over, held it up to the light, and took his time. "Nia Caldwell," he read aloud. "This your current address?" "Yes." He glanced down the road, then back at her. "You seem a little far from home, Nia." "It is, Ms. Caldwell," she said, polite yet firm, correcting him. He ignored it completely. "I pulled you over because you were swerving across the center line." Nia's hand stayed on the wheel. Her pulse remained even. She knew with absolute certainty that she had not been swerving. "I was not swerving, officer. I have been in my lane the entire time." Ellison pulled his sunglasses down just enough to look over them, the smirk returning. "Are you telling me what I saw?" "I am telling you what happened." He pushed the sunglasses back up, straightened, and stepped back. That was the moment his whole demeanor changed. The casual arrogance vanished, replaced by something colder and harder. The look of a man who had just been challenged and did not plan on losing. "Step out of the vehicle." Nia took a breath. She knew her rights. She knew she did not legally have to comply during a standard traffic stop unless there was a safety concern. But she also knew what happened to black people who said no. So she opened the door slowly, stepped out, and stood beside her car. The evening air felt warm. The asphalt still held the heat of the afternoon sun. She could smell fresh-cut grass from a nearby field and the faint chemical bite of exhaust from Ellison's idling cruiser. Hands on the hood. She placed her hands flat on the car. The metal felt hot under her palms, gritty with road dust. She could feel the faint vibration of the engine ticking as it cooled. Ellison stood behind her, too close. She could feel his shadow. "Where are you coming from?" "Home." "Where are you going?" "To visit my mother. You have any drugs in the car?" "No." "You have been drinking?" "No." "You sure about that?" "I am sure." He circled around to face her, leaned against the cruiser with arms crossed, and studied her the way one studies an animal behind glass. What was killing him inside was that she was not scared. He expected fear, trembling hands, a shaky voice, maybe tears. That was what gave him the rush. But Nia gave him nothing. Her voice stayed level. Her eyes remained steady. Her answers were short, clear, and unshakable. And every second of her composure made him angrier, because to a man like Ellison, a calm black woman was not cooperating. She was defying him. Deputy Nolan Pierce stood some distance away, hands on his belt, eyes scanning the road. He had not said a word since they stepped out of the cruiser. He had watched Ellison push boundaries, bend rules, and cross lines for years, yet he had never once opened his mouth. Not because he agreed, but because staying silent felt easier than being brave. Ellison radioed in Nia's plates. The response came back quickly. Clean, no warrants, no prior offenses, nothing. For any reasonable officer, that would have ended it. Hand back the license, wish her a nice evening, and walk away. But Ellison was not reasonable. He walked back to Nia, stood right in front of her, close enough that she could smell the spearmint gum on his breath. I am going to search your vehicle. Nia did not hesitate. I do not consent to a search. I am not asking for your consent. I smell marijuana coming from your car. There was no marijuana. There had never been any. Nia did not smoke. The car smelled of leather cleaner and the vanilla air freshener hanging from her mirror. But I smell marijuana was the oldest trick in the playbook, 4 words that gave an officer the power to tear a life apart. Nia kept her voice steady. There are no drugs in my vehicle, officer. I do not consent to a search. Ellison stepped closer, his chest inches from hers, invading her space, daring her to flinch. I did not ask what you consent to. He turned and waved toward the road. A second patrol car that had been parked down the shoulder rolled forward. 2 more officers stepped out, both white, both young, both looking to Ellison for direction. 4 officers now surrounded one woman on a quiet road in the middle of nowhere. The power imbalance was suffocating. Ellison pointed at Nia like she was a suspect in a lineup. We have got a non-compliant driver, possible narcotics. Non-compliant. That word. Nia knew exactly what it meant here. She had said no. She had asked questions. She had not been afraid enough. She turned to face Ellison directly. Her voice did not waver. I have identified myself. I have cooperated with your questions. My plates are clean. Your search has no probable cause. I am asking you, for the record, to document this interaction. Ellison tilted his head and looked at her the way a cat looks at something small. You have got a real mouth on you, do you not? I am exercising my rights, Sergeant. He turned to Nolan and spoke loud enough for Nia and every officer to hear. Always the same with these people. Give them an inch and they think they run the place. These people. He said it casually, like it was nothing, like it was just a fact. And that was the moment the racial dimension of this stop became undeniable. It had been there from the second Ellison saw a black woman driving a clean car through his territory. But now it was spoken aloud, on record, in front of witnesses. Nia said nothing. She didn't need to. The dashcam was rolling. The evening was still, and every word Ellison spoke was being recorded by the very system that was supposed to protect him. He just did not know it was about to destroy him. Ellison did not wait for Nia's consent. He never planned to. He snapped his fingers at Nolan. Search it. Nolan hesitated for just a second, a flicker of doubt or guilt in his eyes, but it passed. He walked to Nia's car, opened the driver's side door, and began looking. Nia stood with her hand still on the hood. The metal had started to cool. Long shadows stretched across the road like dark fingers reaching for something they could not quite touch. She watched Nolan go through her car the way one watches someone walk through a home with muddy boots. Every opened compartment felt like a violation. Every drawer pulled was a line crossed. Glove box first. Registration? Insurance papers? A small leather Bible with a cracked spine. Reading glasses in a floral case. Nolan set each item on the passenger seat as if cataloging evidence from a crime scene. There was no crime. Back seat next, a reusable grocery bag, a water bottle, a folded sweater. Nothing. Then that's in the trunk. Nolan popped it open, a gym bag with workout clothes, a change of shoes, and a manila folder thick with official documents stamped with the Ridgemont County Police Department seal. Inside were department papers only a senior officer would carry. Nolan glanced at the folder but did not open it. He was moving too fast, too eager to finish and return to Ellison's good side. If he had taken a moment to flip that folder open, this whole story might have ended differently. But he did not. He closed the trunk, walked back to Ellison, and shook his head. Nothing. Ellison's jaw tightened, his nostrils flared. He was not relieved, he was annoyed. Because finding nothing meant he was wrong, and being wrong in front of 4 officers and a dashcam was something Troy Ellison could not accept. Nia spoke, calm and measured, like a woman reading a legal document aloud. You have searched my vehicle without probable cause and without my consent. I want this interaction documented in full. Ellison turned to her slowly. Oh, it will be documented, all right. That should have been the end. Clean car, clean record, clean plates, no drugs, no weapons, no warrants. Any sane officer would have handed back the license and walked away. But Ellison was just getting started. He began circling Nia slowly, the way a dog circles something it is about to bite. His boots scraped the gravel with each deliberate, predatory step. You sure you are not on something? Your pupils look dilated. I am not on anything. Your hands are shaking. My hands are fine. See, that is what someone on something would say. He stopped in front of her, pulled out his radio, and keyed it. Dispatch requesting canine unit to my location, mile marker 12, route 9, possible narcotics. Nia's stomach tightened, not from fear, but from recognition. She knew this playbook. She had seen it used against countless people in her career. Request a dog, delay the stop, stretch the encounter, make the person sweat, make them break. The canine unit arrived shortly after. A German shepherd named Duke, led by an officer who did not make eye contact with Nia once. The dog circled the car, sniffed the tires, the doors, the trunk. No alert, no signal, nothing. Ellison dismissed it with a wave. Dogs miss things sometimes. That is not how canine units work, and every officer on that road knew it. He turned back to Nia. I am detaining you for further investigation. On what grounds? Obstruction. You have been non-compliant since the second I walked up to your window. I have complied with every lawful request, Sergeant. I have not obstructed anything. That is your opinion. That is the law. Ellison's eyes narrowed. Something darker and harder replaced the casual cruelty in his face, the look of a man no longer playing a game, but fighting a war. Are you telling me how to do my job? I am telling you what my rights are. Your rights? He repeated the words slowly, as if they tasted wrong. You want to talk about rights? You are standing on the side of my road, in my county, talking back to me like you are somebody. You are not somebody. You are just another problem I have to deal with before dinner. Nia held his gaze and did not blink. Am I under arrest? Not yet. Keep talking and we will get there. Then I would like to make a phone call. Ellison laughed, short and sharp like a bark. This is not a hotel, sweetheart. Sweetheart. The second time he had used that word, dripping with contempt and loaded with every assumption he had ever made about what a black woman was worth. Nia reached slowly toward her jacket. Her phone was in the right pocket. She moved deliberately, no sudden movements, exactly the way she had been trained. I am reaching for my phone, officer. Just my phone. Ellison grabbed her wrist hard. His fingers dug into her skin like a vice. She could feel the bones shift under the pressure. Hands where I can see them. I just told you I am reaching for my phone. I do not care what you told me. Did I say you could move? You do not have to give me permission to... Shut up! He yanked her arm, twisted it, spun her around so she faced the car again. His hand pressed on the back of her neck, pushing her forward. The metal of the hood felt cool against her collarbone. And then she said it, the sentence that broke him. "I want to speak to your supervisor right now." That was it. Not a threat, not an insult, just a request. A lawful, constitutional, reasonable request that every citizen in America has the right to make. Ellison released her neck. She straightened up and turned to face him. His face flushed deep red. The veins on his neck pulsed like ropes under his skin. His eyes grew glassy and wide. His breathing turned shallow and fast. His hand shook, not from fear, but from rage. "Supervisor," he spat the word. "You want a supervisor? You do not get to demand anything. You do not get to ask for anything. You are nothing. You hear me? You are absolutely nothing." Nia did not look away. "I have the right to..." Slap. Open palm, full force. The sound cracked through the evening air like a gunshot. Nia's head snapped to the left. Her body followed. She stumbled sideways and caught herself on the car door. Her cheek burned like fire. Her ear rang with a high, thin note that swallowed every other sound. She tasted copper and felt the warm trickle of blood from where her lip had split against her teeth. The road fell dead silent. The crickets stopped. The wind stopped. Even the radio in Ellison's cruiser seemed to hold its breath. Nolan's mouth fell open. One of the backup officers took a half step back as if pushed. The other just stared, frozen, hand halfway to his radio. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Moments of silence stretched out, the longest on that road. Nia steadied herself. She pressed her palm against the car, pushed herself upright, touched her cheek, and looked at the blood on her fingertips. Then she turned slowly and deliberately to face Ellison. She did not cry. She did not scream. She did not beg. She looked at him with an expression he would remember for the rest of his life. Not anger, not pain, but certainty. And she said one sentence, low, steady, cold as steel. "You just made the worst mistake of your career." Ellison laughed, but the sound came out thin and hollow. "That a threat? Add it to the report." He turned to Nolan. The red in his face was fading. The adrenaline settled, and beneath the rage something unfamiliar crept in. Doubt. "Cuff her," he said, though his voice cracked on the second word. Nia did not resist. She extended her wrists slowly and calmly. Her face was stone, her lip bled, her cheeks swelled, but her eyes remained perfectly still. Nolan approached with the handcuffs. His hands shook. The metal clinked softly as he fumbled with the latch. Before he could close them, Nia spoke, her voice quiet, almost conversational, like ordering coffee. "Before you do that, Deputy, I need you to reach into my left jacket pocket." Ellison snapped. "We will search whatever we want." "It is not a weapon," Nia said. She did not look at Ellison. She looked straight into Nolan's eyes. "It is identification. Official identification. And I strongly suggest you look at it." Something in her tone stopped everything, not the words themselves, but the unshakable certainty of a woman who knew exactly what was about to happen. Nolan looked at Ellison. Ellison waved dismissively. "Go ahead. Let us see her little ID." Nolan reached into Nia's left jacket pocket. His fingers touched leather. He pulled out a small black case, standard size, nothing special from the outside. He flipped it open, and the entire world on that roadside changed. The first thing Nolan saw was a flash of gold under the fading sunlight. He looked closer. His brain needed a second to process what his eyes were telling him. A badge. Not a driver's license, not a concealed carry permit, not a business card. A polished, engraved, official badge with 5 points, an eagle on top, the seal of the Ridgemont County Police Department in the center, and underneath it 2 lines etched in clean black letters. Police Chief Nia Caldwell. Nolan's hand began to shake, not a little, but a full tremor that ran from his fingertips up through his wrist and into his shoulder. The badge case rattled in his grip like a leaf in a storm. He looked up at Nia, then down at the badge, then back at Nia. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Ellison stood 6 feet away, arms crossed, smirk still on his face. He had not seen it yet. "Well," Ellison said, "what has little Miss Attitude got? Library card? Food stamps?" Nolan turned the badge around slowly and held it up so Ellison could see. The smirk did not just disappear. It collapsed like a building losing its foundation. 1 second it was there, the next, every muscle in Ellison's face went slack. His arms dropped to his sides, his skin, flushed red with rage moments earlier, drained to the color of old milk. His lips moved, but no sound came out. His eyes darted from the badge to Nia's face and back again, like a man trying to solve a puzzle that had just destroyed his life. The 2 backup officers stepped closer to see what Nolan held. One of them, the younger one, whispered 2 words under his breath. "Oh my God." The other took a step back, then another, as if the badge were radioactive. Silence fell. Not the silence of a quiet road, but the silence of a world being rearranged. The silence of 5 men realizing all at once that the woman they had humiliated, searched, threatened, and struck was the single most powerful law enforcement official in their county. More moments of that silence passed. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Nia broke it. She did not yell. She did not scream. She did not raise her voice, even a fraction. She spoke with the calm, precise authority of a woman who had spent years preparing for exactly this kind of moment. "Sergeant Troy Ellison, badge number 4412. Ellison flinched at the sound of his own name. "You have conducted an illegal traffic stop based on fabricated probable cause. You have performed an unlawful search of my vehicle without consent and without legal justification. You have used racially coded language in the presence of fellow officers. You have physically assaulted a civilian, and you have committed battery against the chief of police of Ridgemont County." She recited every charge from memory, no notes, no hesitation. Each violation landed like a hammer strike, clean, precise, devastating. Ellison's mouth moved again. This time sound came out, barely. Chief, I did not know." "You did not know I was your boss," Nia said, her voice unwavering. "But that should not matter, Sergeant, because you should not treat anyone like this. Not a chief, not a teacher, not a student, not a mother driving to see her family. No one." She turned to Nolan. Her eyes dropped to the handcuffs still dangling from his left hand. "Uncuff me, now!" Nolan fumbled. His hands shook so badly it took him 3 tries to find the keyhole. The cuffs clicked open and fell away. Nia rubbed her wrists. Red marks circled them like bracelets. She pulled her phone from her right pocket, the one Ellison had grabbed her wrist to stop her from reaching, and dialed. The first call went to Captain Regina Holt of Internal Affairs. "Regina, it is Nia. I need you at mile marker 12 on Route 9. Full IA team. I am placing Sergeant Ellison under administrative investigation effective immediately. Secure all dashcam and body cam footage from every officer on scene." She hung up and dialed again. The second call went to Roland. "Baby, I am fine. I will explain everything when I get home. I love you." She ended the call, slid the phone back into her pocket, and turned to Ellison. He looked smaller now, as if the uniform had been holding him together, and now it was just fabric. His hands hung at his sides, his shoulders rounded, his eyes fixed on the ground. "Hand over your badge and your firearm, Sergeant. You are suspended pending investigation." Ellison's head snapped up with a flash of the old defiance. "You cannot. The sheriff." "I just did." Nia cut him off without raising her voice. "And if Sheriff Beckett has a problem with that, he can take it up with the district attorney." Ellison unclipped his badge slowly. His fingers trembled as he pulled the pin from his shirt. He set it on the hood of his cruiser, then his service weapon, placing it next to the badge with both hands like a man laying down something far heavier than a gun. Nia turned to the backup officers. "Secure the footage, every dash cam, every body cam. If a single frame is missing, I will hold each of you personally responsible." They moved fast, faster than they had all evening. Nia stood alone on the roadside for a moment. The sun had dropped behind the tree line. The sky glowed purple and orange. The lights on Ellison's cruiser still spun, painting everything in red and blue. She touched her cheek. The swelling had started. The blood on her lip had dried. She breathed in, held it, and let it out. Then she waited for Captain Regina Holt to arrive. Captain Regina Holt arrived shortly after, driving an unmarked black sedan with no sirens, no lights, just speed. Behind her came a white department van carrying 2 internal affairs investigators and a forensic tech. Regina stepped out and took mere seconds to read the scene. Nia standing tall with a swollen cheek and blood dried on her lip. Ellison pale and badgeless, leaning against his cruiser like a man waiting for a bus that would never come. Nolan sitting on the bumper of his patrol car with his head in his hands, staring at the ground between his boots. Regina was experienced, silver-haired, with years in law enforcement and the last several running internal affairs. She had investigated corrupt officers, dirty unions, and cover-ups that reached City Hall. Nothing surprised her anymore. But when she saw the welt forming on Nia's cheekbone, her jaw tightened. She walked to Nia first and spoke quietly. "Are you all right, Chief?" Nia nodded. "I will be." "Do your job, Regina, every detail." Regina pulled out her phone and photographed the welt on Nia's cheek from 3 angles, the red marks on her wrist from the handcuffs and the blood on her lip. Clinical, thorough, every image documented. Then she turned to Ellison. He tried the apology first, words spilling out fast and messy like a man bailing water from a sinking boat. "Chief, look. I am sorry. It was a misunderstanding. I did not recognize you. If I had known who you were, I would never what?" Nia said. "Would never have slapped me? Would never have searched my car? Would never have called me a—" She stopped and let the silence finish the sentence. "That is the problem, Sergeant. You are not sorry for what you did. You are sorry for who you did it to." Ellison opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again with an excuse. "I thought you were reaching for a weapon." It was a split-second decision. "Officer safety." "I announced I was reaching for my phone," Nia said, clearly, twice. "It is on your dashcam audio. You do not get to rewrite what happened when the camera was rolling." He shifted tactics again. "I have a clean record, Chief. Several commendations. Ask anyone in the department. You have also had several civilian complaints, all from people of color, all dismissed by Sheriff Beckett's office without a proper investigation. I've read your file, Sergeant, every page." Something flickered across Ellison's face, not remorse, but fear. The fear of a man who realized the system he had hidden behind was about to collapse on top of him. One last card, the veiled threat. He lowered his voice and leaned in slightly. "The sheriff is going to hear about this." Nia did not flinch. "I am counting on it." Regina stepped between them. "That's enough, Sergeant. You will have plenty of time to talk with a lawyer present." She turned to Nolan next. He had not moved from the bumper. His elbows rested on his knees. His face looked gray. Nia walked over to him. Her tone was different, not softer, but more measured, like a teacher addressing a student who had failed a test they should have passed. "Deputy Pierce, you stood there and watched your partner assault a woman. You performed an illegal search of my vehicle on his orders. You heard him use racially charged language and you said nothing. Not one word." Nolan looked up. His eyes were red. His voice cracked. I should have. Yes, you should have." Nia let that sit. "You are also suspended pending review." She paused, looked at him for a long moment, and then said something that hit harder than any charge. "You know what the difference is between you and Ellison? He chose to be cruel. You chose to be silent. And in that moment, Deputy, silence was a choice too." Nolan's head dropped back into his hands. Regina and her team worked the scene for the next while. Every dash cam was pulled. Every body cam except Ellison's, which had been turned off at the start of the stop. That was a separate violation, and Regina noted it with a red flag in her file. Preliminary statements were taken from every officer on scene. The backup officers cooperated immediately. They knew which way the wind was blowing. Ellison and Nolan were placed in separate vehicles. No handcuffs for either, not yet. But the back seats of those cars felt like cages just the same. Their patrol cruisers were impounded for forensic review. As the internal affairs van pulled away, Nia stood alone on the shoulder of Route 9. The sky had gone dark. Stars were beginning to appear. The flashing lights were gone now. The road was quiet again. She touched her cheek one more time. The swelling was worse. The pain had settled into a deep, dull throb. She took a breath, held it, and let it go. Then she got in her car, started the engine, and drove home to her husband. The footage reached Captain Regina Holt's desk the next morning. She watched it alone in her office with the door closed and the blinds drawn. Minutes of uninterrupted dashcam video, no cuts, no edits, no gaps, just raw, unfiltered reality. She watched Ellison pull Nia over for no reason. She watched him shine a flashlight in her face while the sun was still up. She watched him order her out of the car. She watched him circle her like prey. She watched Nolan search the vehicle without consent. She watched the canine unit alert on nothing. She watched Ellison grab Nia's wrist. She watched him pin her against the hood. She watched him slap her across the face with an open palm. And then she watched Nia stand back up, look him in the eye, and never once lose her composure. Regina watched it twice. Then she picked up her phone and called the district attorney. Soon after, Internal Affairs opened a formal investigation, not just into Ellison, but into the system that had created him. Regina pulled Ellison's complete personnel file. What she found was sickening. Several civilian complaints over the years, every single one filed by a Black or Latino resident. Excessive force, racial profiling, illegal searches, verbal abuse, intimidation. And every single one had been marked investigated, no action required by the same office, Sheriff Harlan Beckett's office. Several complaints, several dismissals, the same signature at the bottom of every report. Regina flagged it immediately. This was not just one bad cop. This was a pattern, a system designed to protect officers and bury victims. And the man at the top of that system was the sheriff himself. The investigation expanded. The story broke when Serena Brooks, an investigative journalist at the local station, lit the match. She had been covering police misconduct in Ridgemont County for some time, knocking on doors that kept closing in her face. She had filed several Freedom of Information requests in recent months, most denied or delayed. Then she received an anonymous tip, a text message with 4 words, "Check the dashcam footage." She filed another request, and by midday she had a redacted copy of the video, released with Nia's personal authorization. Serena aired the footage on the evening news. The segment ran several minutes. The raw video played with minimal commentary. Serena let the images speak for themselves. Ellison's voice, the slap, the silence of the other officers, Nia's face, steady, unbroken, bleeding. The clip spread quickly online. By the next morning, it had crossed millions of views. Every major news outlet in the country picked it up. Networks, newspapers, radio stations, local papers from coast to coast. The footage played on loop in newsrooms, living rooms, and barbershops across America. The hashtag started simply, cleanly, unavoidably. Hashtag Nia Caldwell. It trended for days. Civil rights organizations issued statements within hours. The NAACP called for immediate federal oversight. The ACLU announced it was monitoring the investigation. Local community leaders organized a peaceful vigil outside the Ridgemont County Courthouse that drew over 1,000 people. Sheriff Harlan Beckett held a press conference. It was a disaster. He stood behind a podium with the county seal and a row of flags. His uniform was pressed, his hands were steady, but the sweat on his forehead told the real story. "This is an isolated incident," he said. "One officer, one lapse in judgment. The Ridgemont County Sheriff's Department does not tolerate. A reporter cut him off. Sheriff, what about the previous complaints against Sergeant Ellison? All dismissed by your office. Beckett's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Those complaints were investigated thoroughly and... Were they? Because we have reviewed the files and several of them have no investigator notes at all. Just your signature. Beckett gripped the podium. His knuckles went white. We followed proper procedure in every... Another reporter pressed. Sheriff, did you personally sign off on dismissing complaints against an officer who is exhibiting a clear pattern of racial targeting? The press conference lasted only minutes. Beckett answered 0 questions satisfactorily. By the time he walked off stage, calls for his resignation had already begun. Then the victims came forward. Quincy Hayes was the first, a young man studying criminal justice. Years earlier, he had been driving home from a late study session when Ellison pulled him over on the same stretch of Route 9. Same playbook. License and registration. Step out of the vehicle. I smell marijuana. But Quincy's stop did not end with a slap. It ended with his face pressed into the asphalt and his right wrist fractured during what Ellison called a compliance hold. Quincy spent hours in the emergency room. He filed a complaint the next week. Dismissed. No action required. Signed by Harlan Beckett. When Quincy saw Nia's footage on the news, he sat on the edge of his bed and cried. Not from sadness, but from recognition. The same road, the same officer, the same words, the same system. He called Serena Brooks that night, told her everything. She recorded the interview and aired it soon after. Within days, 3 more victims came forward. Each story echoed the last. Different names, different dates, same officer, same tactics, same outcome. Complaints filed, complaints buried. A class-action civil rights lawsuit was filed against the Ridgemont County Sheriff's Department on behalf of all 4 victims. The lead attorney announced it on the courthouse steps with Quincy standing beside her. Nia met with each victim privately. No cameras, no press releases, just a room, a table, and a woman who looked them in the eye and said what nobody in that department had ever said before. I believe you. And this time, it's going to be different. When the trial came, Ellison was charged with assault and battery, deprivation of civil rights under color of law, a federal charge, unlawful search and seizure, and filing a false police report for the fabricated swerving claim. The dashcam footage was the centerpiece, minutes of evidence no defense attorney could explain away. His lawyer tried. High-stress environment, split-second decision-making, mistaken identity, as if slapping any woman on the side of the road would have been acceptable. The jury deliberated for a short time. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing brought months in federal prison, permanent decertification, meaning Troy Ellison would never wear a badge again in any state, in any capacity, for the rest of his life, and restitution payments to every victim whose complaint had been buried. Ellison stood motionless as the verdict was read. No smirk, no defiance. Just a man in a suit that did not fit, staring at a future he had built for himself. Nolan was charged separately, accessory to unlawful search, failure to intervene. He cooperated fully with prosecutors and testified against Ellison. He described in detail the culture of silence inside the department, the unwritten rules, the things you did not report, the things you pretended not to see. His sentence was probation, mandatory retraining, and permanent demotion. He resigned from the department voluntarily shortly after the trial. He told Serena in an off-camera conversation that he could not wear the uniform anymore without seeing Nia's face. And then there was Beckett. The investigation into the sheriff's office took months. What it uncovered was systematic. Beckett had not just dismissed Ellison's complaints, he had built a pipeline for burying misconduct. Officers who generated complaints were quietly protected. Victims who pushed back were discouraged, delayed, or ignored until they gave up. Beckett was charged with obstruction of justice and misconduct in office. The evidence was overwhelming. Signed documents, missing files, emails instructing subordinates to keep it quiet. He was forced to resign. He lost his pension. And he faced a separate civil trial from the class action lawsuit that would follow him for years. Judge Lydia Vaughn delivered the final word from the bench. She looked at the courtroom, packed with reporters, community members, officers, and 4 victims who had waited years to be heard. And she said something that Serena Brooks would later call the most important sentence spoken in Ridgemont County in a decade. The badge is a symbol of public trust. When that trust is weaponized against the very people it was meant to protect, the full weight of the law must respond. Today, it has. Later, Nia Caldwell stood behind a podium at the Ridgemont County Community Center. Every seat was taken. People lined the walls, officers in uniform, community members, parents with children on their laps. Serena Brooks and her camera crew in the back row. Front row, center seat. Roland, eyes proud, smiling. 2 seats down sat Quincy Hayes in a clean suit, name badge on his chest, now an intern in the district attorney's office. The young man who had had his wrist broken on Route 9 now worked in the building where his abuser had been convicted. Nia adjusted the microphone. She did not talk about herself. She did not talk about the slap. She talked about what came next. Today I'm announcing a comprehensive reform package for law enforcement in Ridgemont County. Mandatory body camera activation on every shift. Deactivation means automatic suspension, an independent civilian oversight board. Members elected by residents, not appointed by the department. Annual implicit bias training. Real programs, real consequences. And an early warning system. Multiple complaints trigger automatic review. No more buried files, no more looking away. She gripped the podium and looked out at the room. I became a police officer because I believe in justice, not justice for some, justice for all. And I will spend every day making sure that is not just words on a wall. The applause started slow. Roland stood first, then Quincy, then the whole room. Nia nodded, did not wave, did not smile for the cameras, just nodded. After the event, she walked to her car alone. The evening air felt cool. Crickets hummed in the grass. Her badge sat on the passenger seat, gold catching the light. She picked it up, ran her thumb across the engraved letters, and clipped it to her belt. She started the engine, pulled onto Route 9, mile marker 12. The same stretch where Ellison had slapped her, searched her car, grabbed her wrist. She drove past it without slowing down, without looking. Eyes forward, hands steady. The road ahead open, quiet, hers. Man, this story is fiction. But imagine you are Nia. No badge, no title, just you on that road alone. Would anyone believe you? Would anything change? Think about that. Drop your answer in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Next week's story, even crazier.